Chapter 1. The House That Whispered Back. They called me paranoid, said I was seeing ghosts inside my own home. But the night the door unlocked at 1:47 a.m., I realized ghosts don't erase camera footage. My name is Olivia, host of Revenge Hub, and this isn't just my story, it's what happens when the woman you gaslight starts recording. Every lie leaves a trace, and sometimes the camera remembers what love tries to forget. It started with a whisper, the sound of a door unlocking at 1:47 a.m. I turned, but the hallway was empty. The next morning, my husband laughed, said I was paranoid. Maybe I was. Or maybe I just hadn't pressed record yet. My name is Olivia, and this is the night my paranoia became proof. It started with something small, so small that I almost convinced myself it didn't matter. A picture frame on the hallway wall tilted half an inch. A drawer that didn't close the same way it had the night before. At first I thought it was Caleb, my son, rushing to grab his backpack or his art supplies before school. Then it kept happening. By early autumn of 2023, it wasn't just the picture frame. The security camera by the front door kept going offline always when Andrew said he was away for work. He's an IT engineer at a company called Cloud Haven in Portland, the kind of man who can fix any system, any device, except maybe a marriage. I asked him one night while we were having dinner if he'd noticed the cameras acting strange. He laughed, shook his head, and said I'd been watching too many detective shows. I smiled like it was funny, but inside, something in me went still. Andrew and I have been married for almost 10 years. We built this life piece by piece from our small apartment downtown to this 2-story home in Laurelhurst, a neighborhood I fell in love with because of its quiet streets and old oak trees. I designed every inch of it, every lamp, every color on the wall. You'd think I would know when something felt wrong. He started traveling more that year. Conferences in Seattle, late meetings in San Francisco. The receipts didn't always match, but I didn't check at first. I wanted to believe him. Then one Thursday evening, I opened the storage closet to put away some tools and found the drawer where we kept our passports locked. Andrew's drawer. When I asked about it, he didn't even look up from his phone. He said he just organized it, didn't want Caleb to mess around with the documents. He said it in that tone, the one that made me feel foolish for even asking. I told myself I was being sensitive. That's what women do when their gut tells them something they can't explain. We negotiate with ourselves until the unease sounds like paranoia. So I started writing things down instead of confronting him. The dates, the times, the exact position of the mail on the counter. Every time something shifted, I noted it. I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister. The first real jolt came one night in October. The clock read 1:46 in the morning when I woke up to the soft click of the front door. My heart jumped so hard I thought it might shake the bed. I turned my head and Andrew was right there next to me, breathing evenly asleep or pretending to be. I lay frozen for a minute, staring into the dark. I almost went downstairs, but stopped myself. Instead, I waited until morning and opened the security app on my phone. The footage from that night was gone. The system log said reset. At breakfast, I asked if he'd touched the cameras. He smiled across the table like I was a child telling ghost stories. You're overthinking again, Rachel. Maybe the Wi-Fi glitched. You always imagine the worst. Then he kissed the top of my head and left for work. That day, I couldn't focus on a single thing at the design studio. I kept thinking about that door, the sound of it, the certainty that I'd heard it. After work, I called my friend Lydia. She owns a home decor shop and knows her way around smart devices. She came over with coffee and her laptop. It didn't take her long. Someone manually reset this camera, she said, scrolling through the system logs. The code's been entered from inside your network. Could it have been a software update, I asked. She looked at me the way people look when they want to be gentle with the truth. No, Rach. Someone did this by hand. We both sat there for a long moment. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. Then Lydia tried to lighten the air. Maybe Andrew wanted to surprise you. You know, like setting up something for your birthday. I nodded, but the thought didn't land. I knew my husband. Surprises weren't his thing. When Andrew came home that night, I mentioned it casually, said Lydia had looked at the cameras. He didn't even blink. She's wrong. Tell her to stick to throw pillows. He laughed, but his shoulders stiffened. Then he added softly, almost kindly, You really need to stop reading into things. It's not healthy. He made it sound like concern, but it felt like a verdict. After he went upstairs, I sat in the living room for a long time. The air felt heavy, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. Caleb's school drawings still hung on the fridge, his soccer ball by the stairs. Everything looked so ordinary. but I couldn't shake the sense that our home wasn't just ours anymore. When the clock hit 10, I picked up my phone and called my sister Marianne. She's a family attorney in Eugene, the calm kind of woman who never raises her voice. She listened quietly while I told her about the cameras and the door. When I finished, she didn't say I was crazy. She just said, "Don't confront him yet. Observe. And Rachel, make sure everything you do from now on is legal. No recordings in private spaces, no audio. Stay clean." I promised her I would. We agreed to meet that weekend. After hanging up, I went online and ordered a set of miniature cameras the size of my thumb, discreet wireless, easy to hide in a plant or a bookshelf. When the confirmation email came through, I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. I told myself I'd install them as part of a design project testing a new line of smart home layouts for clients. That's what I'd tell Andrew if he asked. Before going to bed, I walked through the house again. I touched the frame that had first gone crooked and straightened it. The walls felt like they were watching me back. For the first time in years, I locked our bedroom door. As I lay beside him listening to his steady breathing, the unease turned into something sharper, something almost like resolve. If he wanted me to believe I was paranoid, I would let him. Because paranoia doesn't lie. Cameras don't forget. By morning, I had already planned where each camera would go. The one in the hall, another by the garage, a third near the living room window, where the light hit just right. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something quieter, colder, steadier. A need to see to know. When I looked out the window, the sky over Portland was the color of steel, the kind of gray that holds its breath before rain. I didn't know yet what I'd find. I just knew that whatever it was, I wanted the truth to speak for itself. If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 2. The Pattern of His Lies. By December, my life had split into two quiet halves. The daylight version was the one everyone saw: Rachel Moore, interior designer, smiling at clients, sketching layouts, choosing paint palettes. But when the house went still, when Andrew said goodnight and the world turned dim, I became someone else entirely. I watched. Every morning he left for work at Cloud Haven around 8, tie straight, travel mug in hand. Some days he kissed my cheek, some days not. He'd say he had meetings late or an overnight business trip to Seattle. Yet the credit card statements told another story. I saw the same bar name pop up twice a week, a place downtown that stayed open past midnight. I didn't ask about it. I learned that asking him anything was an invitation to be called dramatic. Instead, I created a new folder in my private email hidden deep behind client documents. Then I opened an account with a cloud backup service that stored data automatically every 24 hours. If something disappeared from my phone or camera, it would live there, time-stamped, immutable. Marianne connected me with a man she trusted, David Harris, a retired police investigator now working as a private security consultant. When I met him at a coffee shop near the river, he was direct. "If you're collecting digital evidence, you need a chain of custody," he said. "That means you document every step, keep backups, no alterations, and make sure everything you record is in a space where there's no expectation of privacy. Living rooms, hallways, garage, never bedrooms or bathrooms." "Got it," I nodded. "I'm not trying to trap him. I just want to know." "Knowing and proving are different," he said, sliding me a small flash drive. "This creates hash logs automatically. Use it." That evening, I told Andrew I was working on a new concept for a client, a smart home design using live environment feedback. He looked amused. "You and your gadgets," he said, kissing my temple. "Just don't turn our house into a lab." I smiled, careful, steady, no promises. During the day I worked. At night I reviewed. I became attuned to the sound of the house breathing, the creak of the staircase, the hum of the heater. The cameras recorded nothing unusual for weeks, only normal domestic scenes: Caleb reading on the couch, Andrew watching sports, me folding laundry. But the gaps in Andrew's stories grew. One Thursday night after Caleb's bedtime, I sat with Marianne on a video call. "You need to protect yourself legally," she said. "Even if nothing happens, you want a paper trail." "I know," I said. "I'm not crazy, am I?" She gave me a small smile. "No, honey, you're cautious. There's a difference." The next day, I made an appointment with Dr. Elaine Porter, a psychologist Marianne recommended. I told her I wanted to confirm that my anxiety wasn't clouding judgment. She listened carefully and then said, Gaslighting often makes you question your own reality. Documenting helps you stay grounded. But remember, what's happening here isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Her words sat with me long after I left her office. Pattern recognition. That night, I opened my notes and saw the same pattern in ink trips, resets, receipts. In early January, one of the small cameras caught something that stopped me cold. It was 2 in the morning when I saw the alert on my phone. Movement detected in the living room. I opened the feed and froze. Andrew was walking downstairs in his t-shirt and pajama pants, holding Caleb by the hand. My son looked half asleep. Andrew knelt beside him on the couch. "If someone asks," he said softly, "you can tell them Mom gets mad sometimes, right?" "She yells, doesn't she?" Caleb rubbed his eyes. "Only when I don't clean my room." Andrew laughed quietly. "That's good. Just remember, it's okay to tell the truth if someone asks." I sat there watching my fingers numb. He wasn't teaching him the truth. He was building a story. The camera kept rolling until they went back upstairs. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I copied the footage to the cloud and to the flash drive David had given me. I sent both to Marianne and wrote in the message, "Seal it. Don't ask questions yet." When Andrew came into the kitchen later yawning, I poured coffee as if nothing had happened. "Rough night?" he asked. "I heard you moving around," I said casually. "Caleb had a bad dream." He took his mug, kissed the top of my head. "Go easy on yourself, Rach. You worry too much." I smiled the way a person smiles when they're learning to keep secrets. Days passed. Lydia stopped by with fabric samples talking about spring trends. I listened, nodding, while my mind counted timestamps. When Andrew texted that he'd be in Seattle for 2 nights, I checked the credit card log again. There it was. A charge at Danner's Bar, downtown Portland, 11:37 p.m. I started mapping his lies the way I mapped floor plans. Clean lines, measured angles. Each inconsistency had coordinates. That weekend, while Andrew was supposedly traveling, I was in the office syncing files to the cloud. A new document blinked in his shared folder, one he hadn't secured with a password yet. I opened it. It was an email draft never sent. The line at the top read, "Can't wait until she's gone for that weekend retreat." My stomach turned. I scrolled further. The next line, "We'll finally have the house to ourselves." I closed the laptop before I could read more. The following evening, Andrew came home early carrying takeout. "I thought we could have dinner together," he said, cheerful, almost too cheerful. I studied his face, wondering if he knew what I'd seen. "Sure," I said lightly. "You've been working so hard lately." He laughed, unwrapping the food. "Maybe too hard. I could use a break." I told him I had something new for him, a small surprise. I handed him a sleek box with a smartwatch inside. "Part of my design project," I said. "It monitors temperature and lighting changes for my smart system prototype. Try it. I need someone who moves around the house more than I do." He slipped it on. "Does it track my every move too?" I smiled. "Only if you're interesting." He grinned, thinking it was a joke. The watch recorded no audio, only GPS and timestamps. Perfectly legal. For a week, nothing happened. He wore the watch, sometimes complaining about its battery, sometimes forgetting to charge it. I stayed quiet. Every night, I backed up its data. One afternoon in February, while reviewing footage from the living room camera, something caught my eye. It wasn't movement this time. It was reflection. In the glass of the mirror near the entryway, Andrew stood in what looked like his office, talking to someone just out of frame. The reflection was clear enough to see her profile, dark hair, sharp posture, young. I recognized her instantly. Melissa Kane. She worked in marketing at Cloudhaven. I had met her once at a company dinner. She'd called me Mrs. Moore with a sweet smile that felt too careful. I paused. The frame zoomed in, then stopped myself. Proof needed patience. I closed the laptop, exhaled, and looked around the room that suddenly felt smaller. That night, Andrew called from Seattle again. The GPS on his watch pinned him 12 miles away near Cloudhaven's downtown office. I stared at the blinking dot on my screen, calm and still. The storm inside had already passed. Gaslighting makes you doubt your instincts until you can't tell if you're crazy or clairvoyant. Sitting there, I finally understood. Women aren't paranoid, we're pattern finders. I let the recording run until the battery died, then backed it up to the cloud. The house was quiet again, the way it always was before something changed. If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 3. Every frame remembers. The morning after felt like a still lake, glossy on the surface, deep underneath. I made Caleb's lunch, sent him to school with his soccer gear, and watched Andrew leave for work in a crisp shirt and the watch he still thought was a toy. He kissed my cheek and said he would be back late. I nodded and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear like everything was normal. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and pulled up the files. There is a rhythm to collecting proof. You name it, date it, duplicate it, and you do not touch the originals. I exported the previous night's data from the hallway camera and the watch GPS to my cloud folder, then to the flash drive David had given me. The software stamped a hash each time. A blue bar slid across the screen while the house ticked softly around me. When the upload finished, I printed a small index page and slid it into a folder with a calm I did not feel. By lunch, I had an email from the school. It was short and polite. Principal Howard wanted to schedule a call that afternoon. I stared at the subject line and knew. When I answered, his voice was careful. Mrs. Moore, I received an email from your husband this morning. He expressed some concerns about your well-being and your interactions with Caleb. What kind of concerns? He referenced instability at home, he said. We take these things seriously. I have asked our counselor to meet with Caleb as we would with any student. I also want you to know that our staff has not observed any troubling behavior from you during drop-off or school events. I closed my eyes and breathed. Thank you for telling me. Is it possible to document your observations? Yes. Our counselor can draft a letter summarizing her sessions with Caleb as well as staff observations. We aim to be neutral and factual. That would help, I said. I appreciate your clarity. After the call, I texted Marianne and told her what had happened. Get it in writing, she replied. Everything that can be written, get it written. When Andrew came home that night, he set his bag on the counter and stretched like a man who had earned his rest. He studied me, maybe checking for cracks. You doing okay? He asked. I am, I said, and turned back to the sink. How was Seattle? Long, he said, and poured himself a drink. You should not worry so much, he said it like a kindness. I watched his reflection in the window and thought of the principal's measured voice, the way schools speak when they are building a record brick by brick. I was building one too. Early the next week, the garage camera caught him in the glow of the sensor light. It was almost midnight. The video was crisp and silent. He opened the trunk of his sedan and pulled out a manila envelope thick enough to bow. He looked around the garage, then slid the envelope behind the storage bins where we kept last summer's camping gear. In the morning after Andrew left, I took a picture of the hiding spot, but did not touch the envelope. Instead, I called Lydia. Will you come over? I asked. I want another set of eyes. She arrived with coffee and her practical tone. We stood in the garage while the heater clicked on and off. Do we move it? She asked. No, I said. Not yet. We went back upstairs and I played the footage for her. She watched without speaking, then exhaled slowly. Do you think it is about the house? She asked. I think he wants leverage, I said. If he can make me look unstable and sell the house before anything is decided, he gets everything he wants. You are not doing this alone, she said, and squeezed my shoulder. I sent the clip to Marianne and to David with the timestamp and the camera serial number recorded on a separate page. Marianne called an hour later. That envelope is a problem, she said, but we are not touching it yet. If we find a forged document later, we will match it to this video. Keep logging. Keep quiet. I hate the waiting, I said. I know, she said. Let him talk first. The letter from the school arrived at the end of the week. It was clinical and kind. The counselor had met with Caleb twice. He reported that home was safe. There were no concerns of neglect or harm observed. The staff noted routine calm exchanges at pickup and drop-off. I printed 3 copies and filed them separately. Paper felt heavier when it spoke for you. February blurred into March. Andrew started repeating a line to friends when we saw them at weekend gatherings. He would laugh and say I was always suspicious and that a new show had gotten to my head. People would glance at me with polite sympathy or amusement. I smiled and passed the salad and did not repeat myself. The watch dot blinked on my screen at odd hours. The bar charges fell like tiny stones into the same well. The day the envelope moved, it was raining. I saw him on the garage camera again, pulling it from behind the bins. He tucked it under his jacket and left for work early. I watched the watch GPS hop from our driveway to a notary office near the river, then to Cloud Haven's building. I wrote the times down by hand and circled them in red. That night after Caleb went to sleep, I asked Andrew if he had been to a notary. He smiled without looking up from his phone. You and your questions. It is a yes or no, I said. It is an irrelevant, he said, and walked away. By May, the air in the house had a hard edge. He filed for divorce in Multnomah County Family Court and alleged that I monitored him, that I was unstable, that I yelled at our son, that I frightened him. His petition landed like a stone on my kitchen table. I held it and felt nothing. The numbness was a kind of armor. Marianne came up from Eugene for the first session at court. We sat on the wooden bench outside the mediation room. She folded her hands and spoke softly. Do not take the bait, she said. If they try to make you defend yourself in 10 directions, stay with one. We will present only what matters for this hearing. David met us in the hallway with a black binder. I prepared a declaration about the chain of custody, he said. Every file has a hash log and a cloud log. You have a letter from the school and a therapist letter confirming you are stable. All your recordings are in common areas. No audio. You are clean. I nodded and stared at the beige carpet until the bailiff called our names. Inside, Andrew sat across the table with his attorney, a poised woman in a gray suit who smiled as if she already knew the ending. Andrew looked rested and tidy. He glanced at me and away again. The mediator began with pleasantries and ground rules. Then Andrew's attorney slid a printed photo across the table. It was me taken months ago, standing in the kitchen with tears on my face. Lydia must have been there. I remembered the day, the way stress hits you from a side angle and you do not see it coming. This is typical, the attorney said. Rachel is emotional and controlling. She has cameras in every room. She destabilizes the child's routine. Marianne looked at the photo for a beat, then turned it face down. Is that your best evidence, she asked. For now, the attorney said smoothly. Marianne nodded once and opened our folder. She placed 2 documents on the table as if laying down cards. The first was the school's letter. The second was a printout of the watch GPS showing a timeline that contradicted Andrew's claimed travel. The attorney skimmed both and set them aside with a small shrug. Even if she is not unstable, the attorney said, she is invasive. She is turning their home into a surveillance state. Marianne did not look at her. She looked at the mediator. We have a short video, she said. 27 seconds. No audio. Recorded in the living room, a common area. It shows Mr. Moore coaching the child about what to say if asked about his mother. The attorney arched a brow. Coaching is a loaded term. Watch it, Marianne said. The screen lit up. The clip was silent, grainy only at the edges. Andrew and Caleb appeared on the couch at 2 a.m. Andrew leaned in and moved his mouth slowly, clearly forming words. He held up a finger and nodded. Caleb nodded back, sleepy and compliant. Andrew pantomimed speaking to an invisible person and gestured toward me, the shape of my name on his lips. The silence made it worse. Without sound, the intent was naked. The mediator watched expressionless. The attorney began to say something and stopped. David slid a 1-page affidavit forward. This file's metadata is preserved, he said. Here are the hash values, the capture times, and the cloud logs. The camera is in a common area. There is no audio. It has not been altered. Andrew stared at the table as if the wood grain had become important. The room felt colder. The mediator cleared his throat and asked to see the school letter again. He read it slowly and then looked at Andrew. Mr. Moore, he said, for the purposes of this temporary order, I am inclined to grant primary residential time to Mrs. Moore. The child's school reports stability with her. The video is concerning. Andrew's attorney tried to recover. It is possible, she said, that Mr. Moore was reminding the child to be honest. Marianne's voice was quiet. Honesty does not require a rehearsal at 2 a.m. The mediator nodded and scribbled a note. Pending further review, Mrs. Moore will have temporary physical custody. Mr. Moore's parenting time will be set and supervised until we evaluate in a full hearing. I did not look at Andrew. I did not look at anyone. I folded my hands in my lap and breathed. When the session ended, Marianne squeezed my arm. You did well, she said. David closed the binder. Keep doing exactly what you have been doing. Nothing more, nothing less. In the hallway, Andrew caught up to me. His voice was calm in the way people are calm when they are trying not to shout. You made me look like a monster. I turned slightly. You made choices. The camera noticed. He leaned in, eyes hard. You think you are clever. You have no idea what you have started. Marianne stepped between us. We are done here, she said. All communication goes through counsel. He smiled, thin and bitter, then walked away with his attorney at his shoulder. Outside, the sky had opened into a soft, steady rain. Marianne went to get the car. I waited under the awning and watched the water collect along the curb. I felt my hands shaking and pressed them together until the tremor passed. When we got home, Caleb ran to me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I held him for a long time. Did it go okay? He asked into my sweater. It did, I said. You are safe. That night, he fell asleep in the back seat while Marianne and I sat in the driveway and let the wipers beat time. I pulled up the clip again, not because I needed to, but because my mind needed the order of it. 27 seconds of exactly what I remembered, exactly what the court had seen. Andrew on the couch, the nod, the moving lips, the way his hand cued our son to follow a script. Marianne rested her head back and looked at me. Do you want to come inside? I asked. I should drive, she said, but I will call you in the morning. Thank you, I said, for not telling me to calm down. She smiled at that. You were never the one who needed calming. Text me when you are inside. After she left, I sat with the engine off and the heat still lingering. The street lights blurred in the rain. I thought of that night months ago when I had heard the front door and decided to wait. Waiting had felt like weakness then. Tonight it felt like discipline. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Caleb's mouth was open in sleep, his cheeks flushed from the warmth. I reached back and brushed a curl off his forehead. A notification blinked on my phone. A new email from the court confirming the temporary order. I stared at the line that named me primary residential parent. It was only temporary, only a step, but it was a step on solid ground. I opened a different file, an older clip that had nagged at me in the weeks before I knew what to call it. Andrew looked straight into the lens in that one, almost as if he knew it was there and did not care. He smirked, then said something I could not hear. In my memory, I heard the words anyway. You will never find it. I shut the clip and leaned back. The rain tapped harder on the windshield. I spoke softly into the dim car, not for anyone but myself. Cameras are not stupid. Then I turned off the screen, lifted Caleb into my arms, and carried him inside. If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 4. When Proof Speaks. I tucked Caleb into bed and sat in the hallway until his breathing settled into that slow, even rhythm that lets a house relax. Summer bled into August, and with it came a new attorney on Andrew's side, and a sudden surge of confidence in his emails. He wanted a psychological evaluation for me. He wanted everything I had recorded tossed out. He wanted to call my proof fabricated. Marianne drove up 2 days later. We spread files across my dining table like a clean map, every page labeled, every copy mirrored on the cloud. David arrived with a locked case and his matter-of-fact voice. We are filing a sworn statement, he said. It explains your storage process and the integrity checks. I generated hash values for every video and photo, and I matched them to the cloud provider audit trail. Think of it as a fingerprint for each file. Marianne tapped her pen against a legal pad. We will attach the chain of custody. Capture time camera serial storage logs. No audio, common areas only. We will also submit the letter from the school and the therapist note. Rachel, you do not need to say much. Let the paper talk. I nodded. He says the clips are edited. David smiled without warmth. Then he will need to explain why your file fingerprint matches down to the last character. The hearing was set for mid-August in the family court downtown. The waiting room air was conditioned cold, and the clock on the wall seemed to count seconds with a louder tick than usual. Andrew arrived in a navy suit, a new lawyer beside him. She introduced herself with a polished smile and a file the thickness of a novel. Melissa did not come. I noticed her absence like a missing note in a song you know too well. Inside the courtroom, the judge took the bench with the calm face of someone who has heard every kind of story. Our case was called. We stood. The judge reviewed the file for a long minute that felt slow and surgical. Andrew's attorney rose first. Your Honor, we are requesting a court-ordered psychological evaluation of Mrs. Moore based on a pattern of obsessive monitoring and invasive behavior. We also move to exclude any so-called recordings on grounds of manipulation and spoliation. Marianne stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Moore has recorded in common areas only without audio and has preserved each file in a verifiable manner. We have an affidavit from a former law enforcement investigator describing the chain of custody, along with file fingerprints and cloud audit records. We also have letters from the child's school and clinician attesting to stability in the home. The judge looked to David. Sir, step forward. David took the stand and swore in with a steady hand. State your background. Former detective, now security consultant. I reviewed the capture devices and storage procedures. Each file is associated with a fingerprint that cannot change without detection. I verified timestamps from the devices against the cloud provider logs and against the home network logs. Are these files altered? No. Andrew's attorney cross-examined. You were hired by Mrs. Moore? Yes. Paid? Yes. So you are not independent. My analysis is, the math does not change based on who pays the invoice. The judge held up a hand. Thank you. Andrew's attorney pivoted. In addition, Your Honor, we submit this document, a signed transfer agreement for the marital residence. It shows Mrs. Moore agreed to sale. We intend to close promptly. She passed copies to the clerk. My eyes landed on the signature that was supposed to be mine. It looked right to a stranger. It looked wrong to me. The date in the notary block made my pulse kick. I did not speak. Marianne touched my wrist for a fraction of a second. She stood. Your Honor, we would like to respond with a very brief video and one lab result. 30 seconds, then a summary. The judge nodded. Proceed. Marianne connected the laptop to the court screen. The clip opened in a conference room with glass walls. It had been captured by the smartwatch Andrew wore for weeks. There was no audio, only the clean footage of Andrew with Melissa at a table with a folder open between them. He pointed to a line on a document, then to his phone calendar. He made a slicing motion with his hand and tapped the date again. The screen displayed the time code and location coordinates. Andrew's attorney tried to speak. The judge raised a finger without looking away from the monitor. Marianne clicked to the next slide. This is the location log from the same device during the notary time recorded on the submitted transfer. It places Mr. Moore in downtown Portland, not at the location listed in the notarization. We also have a lab report comparing Mrs. Moore's known signatures to the one on this document. The expert concludes it is not consistent with her writing. Finally, we have a certified copy of the notary's journal. It lists a female signer by a different surname than Mrs. Moore and an identification number that does not match her license. Andrew's attorney stared at the screen. This could be coincidence. Marianne's tone stayed even. Coincidence does not line up time code, location, journal entries, and a signature exam. David handed the judge a small stack of pages. Here are the file fingerprints for the video, the cloud audit that shows the clip was backed up within minutes of capture, and the home network record showing the device connected to the same Wi-Fi as Mr. Moore's phone immediately after this meeting. The judge leaned back. The courtroom went so quiet I could hear paper settle when he set it down. He looked at Andrew. Mr. Moore, do you wish to be heard? Andrew stood with careful posture. My wife monitors me. She is unstable. She will do anything to keep the house. The judge turned to the clerk. Bring me the school letter again. He read slowly, then placed it atop the stack. Here is what I see. Mrs. Moore recorded in common areas, preserved files in a verifiable way, and provided corroborating documents from independent sources. Mr. Moore, your counsel has submitted a transfer that appears questionable. Based on the time codes, location data, signature exam, and notary journal, I find that document unreliable. Further, the previous clip depicting your interaction with the child is troubling. Coaching a child to prepare statements is not indicative of concern for the child's well-being. Andrew's attorney tried one more time. We ask that the recordings be excluded entirely. The judge shook his head slightly. They are admissible for these proceedings. He set his pen down and spoke in that measured cadence judges use when they know their words will live on paper. On custody, the temporary order is now made final. Mrs. Moore is awarded primary physical custody. Mr. Moore's parenting time shall be supervised until further review. On property, the residence is confirmed as the separate property of Mrs. Moore. The attempted transfer will be referred for further inquiry as to potential fraud. Ms. Kane is noted as a potential witness. The court has received notice of service. Her failure to appear is recorded. The gavel did not need to fall. The words did the work. Marianne exhaled. David closed his case. I kept my hands flat on the table and tried to feel the grain of the wood through my skin. Andrew stared at me for a long 2 seconds, then leaned in just enough that only I could hear. You recorded everything. I did not blink. No. Only what you insisted did not exist. His jaw shifted. For a moment, something like confusion crossed his face, a quick shadow that did not last. His attorney touched his sleeve and led him out. Outside the courtroom, Marianne wrapped me in a quick hug, efficient and warm. You did exactly what you needed to do, she said. Now you protect the order and you breathe. David's voice was practical again. I will send you a copy of everything we filed. Store it with your other documents. If he tries anything, you already know the plan. We rode the elevator down in a silence that felt clean. When the doors opened, the afternoon had turned the Portland sky into that milk gold color that makes the city look softer than it is. Marianne went to get the car. I stepped outside and let the air settle around me. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then again. I glanced at the screen. A row of messages from a number I knew better than my own, each one a different register of apology and revision. I opened none of them. I selected all and slid them to the archive with a thumb that did not shake. Lydia called before I could put the phone away. Tell me everything, she said. It is done, I said. The house is mine. Caleb stays with me. Supervised time for him. She whooped softly and then quieted. You okay? I will be, I said. I am going to pick up Caleb and take him for ice cream. Then I am coming home. Come by later, she said. I bought you the good candles. I laughed and the sound felt strange in my own mouth, like a new pair of shoes that still need breaking in. Thank you for being on my side when it was unfashionable. It was never a trend, she said. Text me when you land. I walked toward the parking garage and watched a line of sunlight move along the floor like a quiet river. In my bag, the binder sat heavy, not as a burden but as ballast. There was nothing to announce, nothing to celebrate in a loud way. Preparation had simply met its moment. On the drive to school, I replayed the last year in fast cuts. The first tilted frame, the reset log, the watch dot hovering over places it should not have been. Caleb's small nod on the couch. The stillness of the clip with Andrew and Melissa, the way intent looks when it forgets to hide. I let the sequence run without sound in my head. Even memory felt more honest that way. Caleb burst out of the school door and ran to the car with his backpack bouncing. He crawled into the seat and grinned. Can we get mint chip? We can get 2 scoops, I said. He watched me buckle my belt. You look happy. I look like someone who has finished a long thing, I said. That is a kind of happy. We drove with the windows down. The air smelled faintly of rain, even though the sky had cleared. At a red light, my phone buzzed again. I did not look. The message could live in the archive with all the other versions of the story he preferred. At home later, after homework and ice cream and a bath that left the bathroom mirror fogged, I stood in the hallway outside Caleb's room. I watched his chest rise and fall and felt the tiredness that comes when a storm finally pulls away. The house made its familiar clicks as it cooled. I went downstairs and turned on a single lamp in the living room. The folder from court sat on the coffee table square and quiet. I placed my palm on it and then let it go. My phone lit up across the room and then dimmed again. I left it where it was. Not every message deserves a witness. The evening slid toward blue. Through the window, the last of the light caught on the leaves and threw small moving shadows on the wall I had painted myself. I thought of what David had said at the table. The math does not change. That was true of more than files. It was true of work of calm, of the quiet force of preparation. When the room had gone almost dark, I stood and switched off the lamp. The house was still, not the brittle kind of still it had been months ago, but the deep, ordinary still that homes earn when people inside them are safe. I climbed the stairs and paused in the hallway, listening. Then I went to bed and let the day fall behind me. If this story touched you, please subscribe, and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The camera never blinked. When the year turned and the rain softened, life began to sound different. The silence in the house no longer felt like warning. It felt like peace stretching its arms again. Caleb was taller now, his laughter fuller, the kind that filled stairwells and hallways. 6 months had passed since the ruling, long enough for the sharpness of courtrooms and affidavits to dull into memory. By March of 2025, I had opened a small studio downtown, a glass front space with a painted sign that read Safe Spaces. It was less about design now and more about teaching. Twice a week, I met with women who wanted to learn how to protect themselves the right way. Some were newly divorced, some still deciding if they had the strength to leave. I showed them how to store evidence properly, how to separate bank accounts, how to document behavior without breaking privacy laws. Marianne handled the legal basics, and David came once a month to explain the tech, metadata, timestamps, backup integrity. Lydia brought her coffee cart and made sure the space smelled like something warm. The first morning of the workshop, I arrived early. The air still held the chill from the river. I arranged chairs in a semicircle and placed a bowl of tulips on the table. Marianne stood near the projector setting up slides. "You really did it," she said, smiling at me. "A place that turns proof into education." I adjusted the microphone cable. "It is just a start. If it helps one person not doubt herself, it is worth it." David walked in carrying his laptop. "We are ready," he said. "The network is secured and the projector is connected. You should be proud, Rachel." Before the guests arrived, I went to the back office to check my computer. The folder of archived files sat there untouched since the final hearing. I had promised myself I would not open them again. But curiosity, or maybe closure, has a way of finding small cracks in resolve. There was one file I did not remember labeling. It was dated a week after the last court appearance. My breath caught when I saw the timestamp. It had recorded automatically from one of the cameras I had never reset. The video opened to my old living room. The lighting was dim, the same amber hue from the lamp Andrew always left on. He sat on the couch in the center of the frame, shoulders, bent hands clasped between his knees. For a long moment, he did not move. Then he looked straight into the lens. His voice was low but clear enough to cut through static. Maybe she was right all along. I watched him breathe out slow and tired, then stand and walk out of the frame. The clip ended there. I stared at the frozen image of his face frame 91 according to the counter at the bottom. I saved that single frame and deleted the rest. Then I emptied the recycle bin. The confirmation window blinked and vanished, leaving the screen black and still. Marianne's voice called from the front. "They are here." I closed the laptop and joined her. The room filled with the murmur of chairs scraping and the shuffle of notebooks. A dozen women sat waiting, some nervous, some eager, all with that same quiet determination I once mistook for fear. I told them stories of what documentation could do, how truth could survive if handled carefully. I told them that caution was not paranoia, that calm was stronger than rage. When I finished, David showed them how to back up a file and prove its origin, and Marianne explained what evidence the court accepted. When the session ended, they lingered to ask questions, their voices softer but steadier. Lydia brought over a cup of coffee. "Full house," she said. "You did good." I smiled. They did good. They showed up. Later that afternoon, while packing up cables, I found Caleb sitting near the back window with his homework. He had grown quieter this year, thoughtful in ways I had not expected for a 9-year-old. He looked up at me. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Anything," I said. He hesitated. "Were the cameras bad people?" I sat beside him and brushed his hair away from his eyes. "No, sweetheart. Cameras are not people. They just remember when others try to forget." He thought about it, then nodded slowly. "So they helped us." "They did," I said. "But we helped ourselves too." He smiled and bent over his notebook again, the matter settled in his mind. A few days later, Marianne called to tell me that Andrew had lost his position at Cloudhaven. The company had found discrepancies in his department accounts, small manipulations in expense reports. There would be no charges, just a quiet dismissal. She sounded hesitant, watching my tone. "I thought you should know," she said. "Thank you," I said simply. "I hope he figures himself out." Not long after, a letter arrived, addressed in handwriting I did not recognize. Inside was a short note from Melissa Kane. She wrote that she had left Cloudhaven, that she was volunteering with a shelter in another state, that she was sorry. I folded the letter and slid it into a drawer without a word. Forgiveness did not need witnesses either. In late March, a local journalist named Jenna Price reached out. She had read about the workshop and wanted to feature it for the community segment. I agreed to meet her at the studio. The interview was gentle. She asked about rebuilding, about teaching others about the past. When the camera light turned red, she leaned forward. "Do you ever regret any of it?" she asked. I thought about the nights of waiting the recordings, the courtroom air so cold it burned. I thought of Caleb asleep in the back seat of the car that night the temporary order came through. No, I said. I just learned that silence is also a voice. She nodded and shut off the camera. That might be the headline. When the segment aired a week later, people sent emails, some from women I had never met. They thanked me for reminding them that preparation was not cynicism, that trusting yourself was an act of courage. The studio calendar filled faster than I expected. One Friday evening, after everyone had gone, I stayed behind to lock up. The city outside was wrapped in drizzle, the kind that painted the streets silver. Through the window, the neon reflections of nearby shops shimmered in puddles. I leaned against the counter, listening to the faint hum of traffic. For the first time in a long time, the quiet did not need proving. It just was. Caleb's laughter echoed faintly from a voice message on my phone, the kind he left when he stayed at Marianne's for the weekend. He had started recording things lately, small moments, the sound of the ocean on field trips, the cat purring, the way rain hit his window. I smiled. I turned off the lights except for the one by the window. Outside, Portland's spring rain moved in steady sheets. The streetlights turned the drops gold for an instant before they vanished. I watched the reflection in the glass, my own outline layered with the city behind me. I spoke quietly, more to myself than to anyone who might ever listen. If someone ever calls you paranoid just because you notice what is wrong, do not stay silent out of fear. The truth does not need to shout. Proof is not revenge. It is freedom. I stood there a moment longer, the city breathing softly around me, the rain keeping its rhythm. Then I locked the door and walked into the night, carrying only the frame of a face that had once looked into a camera and confessed what I had known all along.